Hello again and welcome back to the channel. This is Michael from TOEFLresources.com. Today I'm very happy to share the 2024 version of my guide to TOEFL Writing Question 2. That is the academic discussion question. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a couple of sample questions along with sample answers to match them. I'll give you a sort of basic essay template you can use when answering the questions. And at the end of the video, I'll answer a few of the questions that I'm asked most frequently about this task on the TOEFL. So first up, the basics. This is the second question in the TOEFL writing section, and this is how it goes. First, you're going to read a short question from a professor about an academic topic. The question looks like it was posted on a message board that's going along with a university class. After that, you're going to read two student responses to this question. And then you're going to write a response to the question, and it should be a bit more than 100 words. You have 10 minutes to do all of this. This is one of the most frequently asked questions. You have 10 minutes for the whole task. That is reading everything and answering the question. And so I guess we'll get right into it now with a sample question. This is how it looks. During the test, you're going to see something on the screen that looks like this. And there's a few parts here. First up is the introduction, and this is going to be the same no matter what the question is, except they'll change the subject of the class. So you can probably skip this on test day. It's just going to say that the professor's teaching a class, and you should answer his question by supporting your personal opinion and making a meaningful contribution to the discussion. And it's going to say that your response should contain at least 100 words. This is not a word limit. It's just saying that your answer should be at least 100 words, not less. It can be many more words if you wish. After that is the question itself. Now, there's kind of like two parts to this question, and the first one is somewhat less important. It's going to be a long preamble about the subject of the question. So like here he says, like, today we're going to talk about the benefits and drawbacks of remote work. And then he's going to say, many companies have been using remote work in the past few years and others are considering joining them. This represents a major change, so it's something we should be talking about. This is not the question itself. This is sort of the background and the introduction to the question. It's really designed to get you thinking about the topic and to sort of activate the parts of your brain that might have an opinion about remote work. And then at the bottom part, right, I've got it highlighted in blue. This is the key part of the question where he says, what do you think? Is remote work beneficial, or do you think it's a bad idea? So on test day, that's the most important part of the question. That's what I really want you to pay attention to. The beginning stuff, you're going to skim through it quickly. Don't spend too much time reading that because, like I said, you've only got 10 minutes. After that, you've got a couple of student responses. They're going to be sort of the opposite of each other, right? So one of the students is going to say, yeah, remote work's very beneficial. It's very positive. I like it. And he's going to give some reasons. And then the next student is going to have the opposite opinion. So she's going to say, nah, I don't really like remote work. It's not a good idea. Here's why. Now, keep in mind that the sample answers are going to be shorter than your answer. Your answer is going to be 100 words or more. The sample answers are going to probably be like 50, 60, maybe 70 words. So they're short. Don't use them as guidance for how long your answer should be. Also, I want to mention that you don't really need to refer to the sample answers in your response. So another frequently asked question I get is, how much time should I spend reading the other sample responses? My recommendation in that regard is not very much time. I want you to just skim them. Don't spend too much time because you don't really even need to refer to these other answers in your response. You can totally ignore them. I mean, you can respond to them directly if you like, if you think that's going to help you, but you don't need to. The other thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to have the exact same opinion as the other two students. You want to make sure you're not just copying or simply paraphrasing their responses. So for that reason, yeah, you want to skim them, but don't spend too much time, right? If you're spending a ton of time reading the student responses and a ton of time reading the question, not to mention the instructions, well, you're not going to have much time left to actually write your answer. And of course, the last thing you get here, you're going to get the basic controls. There's going to be a cut and paste function, an undo and a redo button. You don't get to use like Control V, Control C during the test to copy and paste. So if you do want to copy and paste, you're going to be using these buttons here. And you'll also have a word count. I believe you have the option of turning off the word count, but don't do that. All right, so here is a sample answer to this question. I'll put it up on the screen here. I'm not going to read it all to you, but you can pause the video, check it out if you want. But in just the next few moments, I'll highlight a few features which I put into this answer. So basically, the only real reference to the other students is at the very beginning of the answer. So I'm saying, while Ronald has raised some relevant points, I agree with Karen that remote work is harmful. And that's it. That's the only reference to Ronald and Karen I put in the whole answer, and that's totally fine. And then I've got a very basic template. This is because, and then I elaborated on it, why I feel that way. And then I said, remember that, and then I put in some extra details to support my argument. That's basically it, right? So as I've highlighted here with the red brackets, my structure, my template begins with a statement of my main point, and then a reason why I feel that way, and then an elaboration with more specific details. That's it. That's my structure. That's my template. The template here kind of begins with the while Ronald has raised some relevant points. You can use basically a very similar line to that when you answer the question. What else have I done here? Well, I've used some transition phrases and some conjunctions to make my grammar a little bit more complicated or complex. So I've got while to create a complex sentence. It's a subordinating conjunction. I've got consequently here. That's a transitional adverb to kind of give it a bit more flow. That's the kind of phrase you could definitely use a lot of in your answers. Consequently, therefore, moreover, as a result. You can sprinkle those all through your answer if you want. And then I've got since, another subordinating conjunction to make a complex sentence. What else have I done? Well, I've tried to avoid using very basic vocabulary. So, here I used interact. I could have said talk, right? I could have said we don't have many opportunities to talk with our colleagues or supervisors, but I used interact because it's a little bit more advanced, a little bit more academic. I mean, I could have said coworkers here to interact with our coworkers, but I said colleagues or our supervisors. It's a little bit more academic, a little bit more advanced to say colleagues than maybe coworkers. And then here I said established. So I said, and such relationships cannot be established via Zoom sessions. I mean, I could have said formed, but I made it a little bit more advanced by saying established. I'm not going crazy with the real heavy-duty academic vocabulary. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more advanced. But I mean, I could have done more, right? I said we don't have many opportunities. I mean, I could have said we don't have frequent opportunities. That would be a little bit better. I mean, and then I said they only promote people that they have very close personal connections with. I mean, I could have replaced very with anything like extremely, or long-lasting personal connections with, anything but very. I could have done more. Same with smart. I think it is a smart idea to give up remote work. I could have said it is an advantageous idea to give up remote work. You see what I mean? I mean, I'm just paying attention to the vocabulary, and I could do better. I could make it a little bit more advanced. Okay, before we wrap up the video, I want to show you one more sample question. This is a little bit different than the one I showed you a moment ago. It's less frequent on the real test, but I think it comes up maybe about 25% of the time. This question is open-ended. So everything else is kind of the same, right? You get the instructions, which are pretty much the same. They changed it to a class on political science. And then you get the student responses. They're a little bit long here, but that's just me. I made the question. They might be shorter. But what I want to draw your attention to is the question itself. So it goes like this. As you know, governments have a responsibility to improve the lives of residents. In today's class, we're going to discuss the best way for them to do that. That's sort of the background information, right? And then highlighted here is the question. What strategy do you think governments should use to improve the overall quality of life of residents? See how that's a little bit different? It's open-ended. You're not just choosing between A and B. You're not choosing between good and bad. You just have to come up with something. You get what I mean? One of the sample questions from the ETS website, the open-ended one is, what do you think is the most important invention of the past 100 years? You see what I mean? You have to come up with some idea. So anyways, the rest of it's exactly the same, right? Here's a sample question. In terms of structure and template, I've got a line which you can kind of memorize and use if you want to start with. It says, some people in the class might disagree, but I am convinced that governments should invest more in maintaining national parks. Right? So that's my opening. That's my main point. After that, I've got some specific reasons why I feel that way. Talks about how we need green space. Cities have stadiums and cinemas, but sometimes we like to be in nature. This can help us unwind and feel better about our hectic lives. Hectic. That's that's my effort to be fancy with the vocabulary. And then after that, I have a personal example. And I started with for example. So you can see that my template is not very heavy duty. This isn't like the integrated essay where you might want like a real serious massive template. The template is really just a structure for organization. In this case, as I said, main point, some reasons why I feel that way, and then a personal example. And again, just to make the grammar a bit more impressive, I've got some coordinating conjunctions. I've got but a couple of times. I've got a subordinating conjunction while, and then I've got a transition. Not only that, that's sort of a nice little transitional phrase. That's how I've made my grammar a bit more complex here. That's what you want to do in your answer. Avoid having a lot of very simple sentences. You want to toss in a few conjunctions here and there, and then some transitional phrases like not only that. All right, so in terms of frequently asked questions for this task, I've mentioned a few of them already, but I'll just repeat myself just for added emphasis. First question I get, this is the most common question. Can I ignore the other students? The answer is yes. You don't have to refer to the other students in your answer. You can ignore their opinions. Just make sure you're not giving the same answer as them. Don't accidentally give the same answer as the other student. Don't just accidentally paraphrase them. So yeah, that's how you can treat the other students. And then that leads into the next most common question. Can I paraphrase or copy their opinions? No. No, I mean, you can refer to them if you want. You can be like, Ronald says that so-and-so and so, but I think he's wrong because so-and-so, right? You can do that, but you can't just copy them. And of course, that leads into the third most common question. Can I just skip the other responses? Well, yeah, basically, you can kind of skip them, but just make sure you're not copying them, like either in terms of giving the same opinion or, word for word. And the next question is, how much should I write? Well, for this one, I recommend between 100 and 120 words. You can write more if you like. You won't get a penalty if you write a very long answer. But like if you're working really quickly, you're probably going to make more mistakes. So that golden range, I recommend 100 to 120 words in total. And I'll just wrap this up with a few kind of basic tips that I always give my students. First up, I recommend that you spend about 2 minutes reading and thinking before you start your answer. That means 2 minutes to read the question, to read both of the responses, and then kind of brainstorm a little bit. Maybe make some notes about what you're going to produce in your answer. I recommend that you spend 7 minutes actually writing and then 1 minute proofreading. Look for mistakes. This is a very short writing task, so even just a small number of grammar mistakes could affect your score. So I strongly recommend that you save at least 1 full minute to look for mistakes. As I kind of mentioned before, to make your grammar more impressive, I want you to use various sentence types. That is simple, compound, and complex types. I'm not going to turn this into a grammar lesson, but if you're not sure what these 3 words mean, you should look them up. Try to avoid repeating words. Don't use the same word more than like 2 or 3 times in the whole response. Part of your score comes from the range of vocabulary you use. So it's not just how complicated or how advanced the grammar is or the vocabulary is, but how varied the vocabulary is. So try to avoid repeating words. The number one bit of advice, as always, is use official practice resources. Look, I make a lot of my own practice materials that I share with my students and on the website. It's pretty good. Other people have pretty good material too, but make sure that you use all of the official stuff you can use, that you can find. That is like the ETS website. They have some sample questions. They have some PDF files, I think. They have the TOEFL Test Ready website, which has some AI scored practice questions. They have the 3 books from ETS. So make sure you use those as much as you can so you can get a real accurate and honest picture of what the real test looks like. And last point here, grammar, grammar, grammar. More than ever, the TOEFL writing section is a heartless and unforgiving grammar test. You make grammar mistakes, your score goes down, right? So keep that in mind. I want you to study grammar. I want you to get your practice responses corrected by a teacher. If you can't get a teacher, maybe find like an AI, maybe ChatGPT, something. You want to identify the grammar mistakes in your practice responses, and you want to avoid making the same mistakes on test day. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here, but I'll leave you with the same offer I make in all my videos. If you want a free evaluation of one of your practice responses, pick a sample question at TOEFLresources.com and post the essay. Well, it's not an essay, but you know what I mean. Post the paragraph in the comments down below. As soon as I have a free moment, I will check it. I'll give you an estimated score, and I'll make a few comments about how you can do better. Meanwhile, my website is TOEFLresources.com. There's a ton of content there. Tips for all the sections of the test, and if you want to sign up for lessons or essay evaluations from me, you can find all the details there if you click around enough. I'll put some links and stuff down in the video description below as well. All right, gonna leave it at that, but it's almost 2025, so subscribe to the channel, and pretty soon I will begin the 2025 cycle of videos for the speaking and writing sections. I think I'll start with the speaking section, so should be a few of those videos, hopefully in January or February. Take care. I will talk to you then.